welcome to our deep dive into habits.
Yeah.
Those fascinating but also kind of frustrating routines we all have.
Yeah.
We're gonna really explore the science behind how those habits form, like why they stick around,
Hmm.
and most importantly, how we can actually change them.
For sure.
So our guides for this whole journey are Robert Sapolsky.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote Biology and Human Behavior.
Great book.
And we also have James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits.
Another good one.
So get ready for some serious aha moments.
Yeah.
Because, understanding this stuff is it's like peeking behind the curtain of how your own brain works.
Yeah, the cool thing is we're not just talking about concepts here.
Right.
This knowledge actually has implications for your everyday life.
Oh, for sure.
How you make decisions, even how you understand yourself.
Yeah.
And the people around you.
Okay, so let's start with, where do these habits even come from?
Yeah.
Why are our brains wired for these repetitive actions in the first place?
Well, to answer that, we kind of have to take a trip back in time.
Okay.
Millions of years, in fact.
Yeah.
Think about our ancestors, trying to survive
Right.
in a world full of predators and not a lot of resources.
Oh, yeah. Scarcity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So their brains evolved to prioritize the immediate needs.
Right. Like right now.
Right now. Finding food, avoiding danger, seeking shelter. Habits back then were super efficient.
Oh, okay.
They freed up mental bandwidth for more complex stuff.
So we're basically running on caveman software
Yeah.
in a world of smartphones and instant gratification and all that stuff.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting. Sapolsky calls it an evolutionary mismatch.
Hmm.
Our brains haven't quite caught up to the fact that calories are easy to get now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Danger is more often chronic stress than a saber-toothed tiger these days.
Right.
And those ancient reward systems are being constantly triggered by things like social media and junk food.
So that explains why, resisting that extra donut or, putting down my phone or whatever feels like such a battle.
Yes.
It's it's not me being weak. It's millions of years of evolution screaming energy.
Right. It's like having this ancient alarm system going off in your head, even though the threat isn't really there.
Okay, so we've got this ancient brain trying to navigate modern life.
Yeah.
But how does this play out at the level of our brains, with neurons and all that?
So that's where we zoom in from evolutionary history
Okay.
to the intricate world of your brain cells.
Cool.
Every time you perform an action, think of it as strengthening a specific pathway in your brain.
Okay.
It's kind of like walking through a forest. The more you walk a certain path,
Right.
the clearer and more defined it becomes.
So the more I scroll through social media,
Yeah.
the more I'm reinforcing that neural pathway, making it harder to resist next time.
Exactly. That's what we call neuroplasticity. Your brain's incredible ability to rewire itself
Right.
based on what you do repeatedly.
Mm.
It's happening all the time.
Hmm.
Whether you're, learning a language, practicing a sport, or, scrolling through your phone.
Okay. That's both fascinating and a bit scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
Makes you realize how much power our everyday actions have in shaping our brains.
It's not about being afraid.
Hmm.
It's about understanding you have more control than you might realize.
Oh, okay.
Now, let's take a closer look at how a habit actually forms, step by step.
Okay.
James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, outlines this beautifully with what he calls the habit loop.
Okay, the habit loop. So walk me through this loop. Where does it all begin?
So it all starts with a cue, any trigger that sets the habit in motion.
Okay.
Could be a certain time of day, specific location, an emotional state, or even a thought.
So feeling stressed triggers you to reach for your phone. Or seeing a plate of cookies on the counter makes you want something sweet.
Exactly. That cue signals to your brain that a familiar reward might be coming.
And that triggers the craving.
Yeah.
The desire for that reward, which then motivates us to actually do the thing.
Exactly. And that's where the response comes in, the actual habit itself.
Right.
You pick up your phone, you grab a cookie,
Mm-hmm.
and then, of course, comes the reward, the satisfaction, the distraction.
Right.
And that reward reinforces the entire loop.
Okay.
Makes it more likely you'll repeat it the next time the cue pops up.
So it's the self-perpetuating cycle
Yes.
that gets stronger with each repetition?
Exactly.
Okay. And somewhere in this loop, dopamine is playing a starring role, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we always hear about dopamine and pleasure and all that.
It's the star of the show.
But how does it actually fit into habit formation?
Dopamine is the fuel that drives the entire system.
Okay.
It's released in anticipation of a reward. And here's the key. It's the anticipation, not the actual reward itself, that really gets us hooked.
Wait, so it's not about the cookie itself, it's about that, like, moment of excitement before you take the first bite.
Yeah,
That's kind of mind-blowing.
it is, right. And this is why those variable rewards,
Okay.
like the unpredictable notifications on social media, can be so addictive.
Yeah.
You never know when that next hit of dopamine is coming.
Oh, wow.
So you keep checking, keep scrolling, keep refreshing. It's like a slot machine in your pocket.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's not just about willpower.
No.
It's about understanding these powerful, like, neurochemical processes that are driving our behavior.
For sure.
This whole anticipatory reward thing is really making me rethink how I use social media. It's a bit unsettling, actually.
That's the first step towards change.
Right.
Becoming aware of these patterns
That's right.
and how they influence your actions. But don't worry, we're not just going to leave you with a sense of doom and gloom. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore how we can actually use this knowledge to break bad habits and build better ones.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to that. So we've got this, like, ancient brain wired for a world that no longer exists.
Yeah.
Battling against all the temptations of modern life. And let's be honest, those temptations can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Like, how do we even begin to, like, manage all that?
It's definitely a complex thing.
Yeah.
You know, biology, psychology, and our environment are all playing a role.
Right.
But that complexity also means there are opportunities there.
Okay.
The more we understand these forces, the better we can work with them instead of against them.
Okay, so let's talk strategy then.
Yep.
If our brains are so good at forming habits, even the bad ones, how do we flip the script?
Yeah.
How do we break those bad habits and actually, like, build better ones? This is where I'm really hoping for some, like, actionable advice.
Okay, well, remember how we talked about neuroplasticity? That ability of your brain to rewire itself?
Yeah.
That's our superpower right there.
Okay.
James Clear, in Atomic Habits, gives us this fantastic framework for rewiring those dopamine pathways. He calls them the 4 laws of behavior change.
I've heard of these laws, but I gotta be honest, sometimes they sound a bit, I don't know, simplistic.
Yeah.
Can we really trick our brains into changing just by making things, like, obvious or attractive?
They might sound simple, but they're based on a really deep understanding of how our brains work.
Okay.
It's not really about tricking your brain. It's more about creating the right conditions to make it easier for your brain to embrace those changes.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break it down.
Okay.
So first up, make it obvious. So, like, if I want to start exercising more, I shouldn't hide my running shoes in the closet.
Right.
I should put them right by the door, almost like a visual cue to get me moving.
Exactly. You're essentially priming your brain to initiate that behavior.
Oh.
Think about it. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah.
You know?
So it's not just about willpower. It's about, like, setting up my environment to nudge me in the right direction.
Exactly.
Okay. What about the second law?
Yeah.
Make it attractive.
Yeah.
This one sounds a bit more fun.
This is the fun one.
Yeah.
The key here is to pair something you enjoy with the habit you're trying to build.
Oh, okay.
So, want to start meditating. Listen to some calming music while you do it.
Oh, okay.
Or trying to drink more water. Infuse it with fruit.
I tried that make it attractive trick with my running shoes.
Really?
It actually kind of worked. I was way less likely to make excuses when they were, like, staring me in the face.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third law. Make it easy.
Okay.
The idea here is to reduce the friction associated with the new habit.
Right.
And increase the friction for the habit you're trying to break.
Okay, so, like, meal prepping on Sundays to avoid ordering takeout during the week.
Exactly.
Or unsubscribing from all those, like, tempting email newsletters that lead to online shopping sprees.
Yeah, for sure. You're removing obstacles,
Okay.
making it more likely you'll follow through, even when willpower is low. Remember, your brain wants the easy route.
The path of least resistance, yeah. Okay, and finally, make it satisfying. I mean, we all love a good reward.
We do.
So, like, maybe treating myself to a delicious, healthy meal after I work out, or letting myself watch my favorite show after I finish, like, a really challenging task.
That sense of satisfaction is key.
Yeah.
It tells your brain, hey, this was worth it, let's do it again.
Oh, okay.
It completes the habit loop and strengthens the pathway.
So the key is to choose rewards that, like, actually align with your goals.
Yes.
Not ones that undermine your progress.
Exactly.
Okay. This whole framework is making me think about, like, the language we use around habits.
Uh-huh.
It's not about being good or bad.
Right.
It's about understanding the science,
Yeah.
how these behaviors take root in our brains,
Yeah.
and using that to, design our lives in a more intentional way.
That's a brilliant insight. It's not about self-judgment. It's about self-awareness and strategic action.
Mhm.
But there's another layer to this that's really important. The role of our environment.
Oh, right?
We're not just isolated brains making decisions.
Yeah.
We're constantly influenced by the world around us.
So, like, if I'm trying to eat healthier, but my pantry is stocked with junk food,
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot harder to resist those temptations. I'm basically setting myself up for failure.
It's like trying to run uphill with a heavy backpack.
Yeah.
You're fighting against your environment. But the good news is you can use this to your advantage.
Okay, so how do we, design an environment that actually supports our goals instead of sabotaging them?
Think of it this way. Every object, every person, even every notification, it's all sending your brain a message.
Right.
A cue that can trigger a habit.
Hmm.
So start by being more aware of those cues.
Okay.
What things in your environment are triggering unwanted habits?
I'm definitely guilty of mindless scrolling on my phone, especially when I'm stressed or bored.
So that phone becomes a cue for distraction. What if, instead of having it on your desk, you kept it in a drawer?
Okay. But what about those, social situations where everyone's on their phones? It feels awkward to be the only one who's not.
That's the social aspect of our environment. It's not just the objects, it's the people we're with, the norms, If everyone's checking their phones, it becomes the accepted thing, even if you don't really want to do it.
It's like we're absorbing the habits of the people around us without even realizing it.
Yeah, it's powerful. But that also means we can create a ripple effect,
Yeah.
right? If we make positive changes, it can inspire others.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so surrounding yourself with people who support your goals,
Absolutely.
who, model those good behaviors you want to cultivate, that can be really powerful.
It's like having a built-in support system.
Yeah, yeah. But what about those habits that feel really, really ingrained? Like the ones that have been part of our lives for years? Is it even possible to change those? I'm thinking about things like negative self-talk or procrastination.
Those are definitely tougher, but absolutely not impossible to change.
Okay.
Remember, neuroplasticity is a lifelong process.
Yeah.
Your brain can change at any age. It might take more time and effort, but those deeply rooted habits can be transformed.
Okay, that's encouraging.
It is.
It feels empowering to know that we're not just stuck with the same old patterns.
Yeah, you have more control than you think.
But I'm realizing that this whole habit change thing it's a lot more complex than I initially thought.
It is. It's not just about willpower or some magic trick. It's about understanding how our brains, bodies, and environment all interact.
Right.
And then using that knowledge to create a life that really aligns with what you want.
It's almost like we need to become scientists of our own lives.
Yeah.
Constantly observing, experimenting, refining our approach to change.
Exactly.
But I have a feeling there's even more to this story, right?
Oh, yeah.
What about, the role of technology, genetics, even, cutting-edge research?
Yeah.
Where are we headed in our understanding of habits?
That's a great question because we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of those frontiers like neuroimaging and even personalized interventions based on your genes. So stay tuned because the future of habit change is super exciting.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the science of habit formation.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've covered a lot of ground so far.
Definitely from those evolutionary roots of our habits to actually how the habit loop works.
And we even explored some practical strategies for changing those habits.
Right, recognizing that it's not just about, willpower.
Right.
It's really about working with our brains and our environment to make lasting changes.
Yeah, it's been pretty eye-opening, to say the least.
For sure.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier.
Right.
The future of habit change.
Yeah.
What are some of the most exciting developments on the horizon? I'm ready for another aha moment.
Okay, well, imagine this. Being able to actually see those neural pathways changing in real time.
Whoa.
To witness the physical transformation of your brain as you're breaking a bad habit or building a good one.
Wait, is that even possible? Are you talking science fiction here?
Not anymore. Neuroimaging techniques like fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging,
Right.
they're allowing us to do just that.
Wow.
Researchers can actually observe how different areas of the brain light up when we do certain things,
Okay.
and how those patterns change over time as we learn and adapt.
That's incredible. It's like having a window into, the inner workings of our minds.
Yeah.
So what are some of the implications of this technology for like understanding and changing habits?
I mean, it's opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay.
For example, we can study the brains of people with addiction
Right.
to see how those neural pathways get so ingrained.
Yeah.
And then we can actually test different interventions to see what really works to rewire them.
So instead of relying on like trial and error or
Right.
anecdotal evidence,
Exactly.
we can actually see what's happening at the neurological level and develop better treatments.
Exactly. Much more targeted and effective treatments.
This is starting to sound like a science fiction movie, but it's actually happening right now.
It is.
It's incredible to think about the potential this holds for improving people's lives.
Absolutely. And it's not just addiction.
Right.
This technology can really revolutionize how we approach a lot of things.
Oh, wow.
Anxiety, depression,
Hmm.
even learning and performance enhancement.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it's not just neuroimaging.
Okay.
We're also making huge strides in understanding how our genes influence habit formation.
Okay.
Scientists are identifying specific genes
Right.
that play a role in things like dopamine sensitivity, impulse control, and even our tendency to form certain habits.
So in the future, could we have like personalized interventions
Yes.
that are tailored to our unique genetic makeup? Like if someone's genetically predisposed to addiction, could we identify that early on
Yeah.
and like give them support to prevent those habits from forming in the first place?
That's the hope. It's all about moving towards a more personalized and precise approach to habit change.
Okay.
One that considers all the factors that contribute to who we are and how we behave.
Yeah, like recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another.
Right, right.
It's about finding what works best for you.
So what about the role of technology in all this? I mean, it feels like technology is both, part of the problem and part of the solution when it comes to our habits.
It really is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it's created environments that are overflowing with distractions and instant gratification,
Right.
making it tougher to stick to those healthy habits.
Yeah, like those endless social media feeds and notifications, it's so hard to resist.
Oh, I know.
It's like we're constantly being pulled back in.
Right, those dopamine hits are powerful.
But then on the other hand, technology also gives us these amazing tools for like tracking our habits, setting goals,
For sure.
building supportive communities online.
Yeah, there's so many apps out there now
Yeah.
that can help us monitor our progress,
Yeah.
give us encouragement,
Right.
even gamify the whole process of change.
Right. Right. It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
And as technology keeps advancing,
yeah,
we can expect like even more innovative tools.
for sure.
Like using AI and machine learning
Yeah.
to personalize those interventions and make them even more effective.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So it's not about like demonizing technology.
Yeah.
It's about using it, mindfully,
Yeah.
strategically
Intentionally.
to support our goals.
Exactly.
We have way more power than we realize to shape our habits and ultimately our lives.
That's a great point. It's about taking back that power, becoming conscious architects of our own destinies.
I love that. Okay, but even with all these advancements,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that sometimes the simplest solutions
Right.
are still the most effective.
Absolutely. Right.
Right, like it's
Yeah.
easy to get caught up in all the excitement of the new technologies and forget about those tried and true methods.
For sure. The things that have always worked.
Right, like setting realistic goals,
Yeah.
breaking down those big tasks into smaller steps,
Absolutely.
finding an accountability partner,
Yeah.
celebrating our successes along the way.
Right. Yeah.
It's about those fundamentals of self-awareness, discipline, support.
Yeah.
Those will always be important no matter how fancy our technology gets.
That's true. And don't forget self-compassion.
Oh, yeah.
We all stumble and fall along the way.
For sure.
It's not about perfection. It's about learning from those setbacks and keeping going.
It's about the journey, right?
It is embracing the process
Yeah.
with all its ups and downs.
This has been an incredible journey
It-
of exploration and discovery for me. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how habits work
That's great to hear.
and how I can actually use that knowledge to create, real change.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure sharing this with you.
Likewise.
Likewise, remember, knowledge is power. And the more we know about how habits form,
Right.
the more we can shape our own lives.
So to our listeners out there, we really encourage you to take what you've learned from this deep dive and start applying it to your own life.
Yeah.
Pick one habit you want to change.
Yeah, even a small one.
Even something small.
And take that first step.
Right.
You might be amazed by how those small steps add up over time.
Yeah, and you're not alone on this journey.
No, not at all.
There are tons of resources out there.
Yeah.
Books, podcasts, supportive communities, online programs.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to reach out for help and guidance.
Yeah. Ask for support.
And most importantly, believe in yourself.
Yes.
You have the power to create the life you want.
One habit at a time.
One habit at a time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of habit formation.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing.